Today, I am sharing 5 creative, zero prep games to make your lessons more fun. These are amazing ideas, especially for beginners, young children, and teenagers. Whether your students are yawning through scales or losing focus halfway through the lesson, these ideas I'm sure will help you a lot to regain their concentration but also to create an amazing energy during your lessons. By the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Gina. I'm pianist and teacher, and I created a successful music studio called Music Pro that is based in the Netherlands. So, with no further ado, 5 amazing game ideas for your piano lessons. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, and let's get started. Game number 1 is, of course, flashcards. I love flashcards. They can look like this, they can look like this. And the amazing thing about them is that they can cover students from very early beginners to intermediates. You can do many different games with them, but let's talk about some basic fundamentals. The first game you can do is, of course, to show the card, and the student has to say out loud the name of the note. Now, for very young beginners, this can take a while, they can be slow, and they can take their time until they find the note. And the important thing is that when they figure it out correctly, you give them the card. They have to take it from you. The act of taking the card from you makes them feel that they succeeded. It's very important. It sounds like a very small detail, but actually, it is crucial for this game, especially for very beginners. Now, if we're talking about students that have already a couple of months of lessons and they know how to read notes, but they're not very fast, what you can do is put a timer. You can put a timer on your phone, for example, of 1 minute and say to your student, let's see how many cards you can find in only 1 minute. This game creates such a rush for the students. They find it actually amazing. They have so much fun. And you can actually do it 5 times in a row. 5 minutes of your lesson can be this game. And by the end of the game, their note reading skills have improved drastically. So I really advise you to try to do this game with many different levels of students, from very young beginners to early intermediates. Of course, in the early intermediates, you can take cards that are more complicated. It can be 2 notes or 3 or 4 notes in one card, and they have to read it very quickly. And then you take the card out of sight, and they have to say what they remember that they read. It helps a lot with sight reading, this kind of game, but it can generally also be cards that have very tricky notes. Now I cannot find in my cards, but it can be very tricky notes, like notes that have extra lines. So maybe it's a very high E in the bass clef. It can be a very low in the bass clef as well, or in the treble clef. So something that has many extra lines that they're not so used at reading, but it will really help them. Now, game number 2 is rhythm clapping games. These games are actually one of the first ones that I tried when I started teaching, and there are plenty of ways to do that as well. You can take a very boring rhythm book, like this one I have here of Agostini. This is, by the way, the book that I learned rhythm in Greece, in the conservatory that I was studying. So you can take a book like this, that maybe looks kind of like that. So nothing really interesting for the students. It doesn't look like a game. And you put the book on the piano. Oh my God, I forgot. And you can put the book on the music stand. And instead of play the rhythm, you can clap it. You can clap it together while counting verbally, very important. If you see that your student is actually doing well with this, then you can let them only clap and you can verbally count with them. And the last stage would be that they do the whole thing. They clap and they count verbally and you do nothing. Now, how do we make it more fun? Because for now, it doesn't sound like the best game ever. Number one thing you can do is you can take the same exercise that they just did and raise the tempo. Make it faster. You can use a metronome, or you can be the metronome, or you can clap with them and they can immediately feel how fast the tempo is. Another way you can do it is by shifting the tempo all the time. So maybe the first line of the exercise, you do it medium fast, and then you do super fast the second line, and you do very slow the third line. So you change the tempo all the time. So actually, in this way, they can train a clapping rhythm, but regardless of the speed. So they're able to do the notes correctly, the rhythm notes correctly, the values correctly, without getting used to a certain speed. The last way that I like to do the rhythm games with a book like this is by interrupting their clapping. So actually, a teacher of mine used to do that to us, and it was very fun. And actually, the period that I was doing this kind of lessons as a student, I was already an adult. I think I was 18 or maybe I was 17 or something. So it actually works for late teenagers as well, because from my experience, I had so much fun that I can guarantee it works for late teenagers as well. So what you do is this: you still have your the book there, and the student is clapping it, and you just interrupt them by doing funny, disturbing, annoying things. So maybe you start clapping wrong out of the blue, or maybe you start shouting ta 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 ta, but in a wrong way. So they get a little bit, they get confused. And so if they are able to keep up doing it correctly while you try to interrupt them, they win. And I have to say, everybody really loves this game, and I think you will love it too. Now, game number 3 is one of my favorites as well, teddy bear game. So the teddy bears, I have many of them. They have many sticker stars because my students like to put stars on them. Very cute. You can use the teddy bears in many, many ways. But one of the things you can do is use them for technique, because we know technique is always boring, or at least for most of my students. And so, what you can do is use them for articulation. For example, you can use the teddy bear for staccato articulation. What does this mean? Maybe your student is doing the C major scale, and you ask your student to do the C major scale but staccato only. So, you can take the teddy, and when your student is playing, let me show you, and they do the staccato, you put the teddy, it's good to have many of them. And when they do the staccato, they need to throw the teddy away. And so they lift their hand for the staccato, and the teddy jumps. This always makes them laugh. And actually, it is very important for us as teachers, because it also makes them understand how to do the staccato without too much verbal explanation, which doesn't work. So, good luck with this one as well. I really enjoy that one, but you do need to have quite a few teddies. Otherwise, you can use them, you can recycle two of them all the time, and uh, they send it far away with a staccato hand, and then you bring it back, and then again. All right, and let's go to the game number 4. But before that, if these ideas help you and you think that you would like to use them and you find them valuable, hit the subscribe button and put a like also. This will really help me a lot, and I can see that you appreciate it by doing this act. So thank you very much, and let's continue with our game number 4. And this is improvisation stories. So some students have very big imagination, and I really enjoy that as a teacher. Actually, when I was young, I didn't have so much imagination, so I'm very happy to see it in my students. But we have to reinforce this imagination, this creativity. So something that I like to do, especially in the end of the lessons, is I'm asking my student to create a story, not a long story, just a short story, the theme of the story. But the story has to have a beginning, a mid, and an ending. It cannot be just a vague story with no end. And so we take that story and we create a piece of music out of it. So maybe the story is actually, the other day, a student of mine said a story about a girl that was having an ice cream, and the ice cream started to melt, and so it dropped, and then she accidentally slipped over the ice cream and fell down. So it can be, as you see, any story. And then we try to imitate the sounds that would have happened in that story on the piano. It's in a way like you're creating music for silent cinema, silent movies. So It's always a very fun thing to do. The students feel very happy with it because you use one of their stories, so it's very, very special for them. And it's also fun for me because I cannot come up with these kind of stories. It's always like something completely weird. And you, of course, try to make a song that has a rhythmical structure. It needs to have also a musical structure, as I said, beginning and at some point an end. But on top of that beat and rhythm, you can make these extra sounds. For example, the girl that falls down, you make a poof on the keys, or you do a certain chord that you learned on that day. So you have an opportunity to use that chord in the improvisation. So I think it is very beneficial also because you can use topics that you learned throughout the lesson and put them in the improvisation story. Now, last game. This game works especially for very shy students. So we have this kind of students that are very receptive, and they hear what you say and they do what you say, but they don't seem to take initiative. And sometimes because they are quite silent in the lessons, you're not even sure if they understood, because you ask, is it clear? Is what we did now clear for you? And then they said, yeah, yeah, but you don't really know if it's true. So something I like to do is to ask them to become my teacher. And maybe the first time they feel a little bit awkward in the beginning. What? Me to be your teacher? Very weird. But the moment you actually invite them to do it and you're very positive about it and they do it for the first time, immediately they open up and they actually like to do it more often after that. So maybe that day you learn the C major scale, and it is clear that they can play it, but it is not clear if they can remember how to practice it at home, if they learned it good enough that they can actually repeat it at home. So you say, for now, let's try that you are my teacher and you have to teach me the C major scale. What are you gonna do? And then you switch chairs. They go into the teacher's chair, this is how I call it, and I go to the pianist chair, which means the piano bench. And they start to show me how to do it. Of course, when they show you, you can also see the gaps in their understanding. So you can help filling those gaps. They are having fun at the same time. You are having fun at the same time. And very often you can see how their personality unlocks. So you can see things that you didn't notice before in the way they speak, the way they talk. Also, it is an amazing bonding moment. So it's just a win win in any case. Try this in your next lesson with your sci students, especially. By the way, which one of these 5 games do you think you will try next? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to make sure that your lessons are not secretly losing students, check this video next. 5 mistakes piano teachers make and how to fix them. See you in the next one.